Hello, friends. Welcome to Speak Up English Academy. In this topic, we will discuss how Sarah opened her bank account. Sarah is a 23-year-old girl who has recently finished her college studies. She has started working at a small company in her town and is excited about earning her own money. Sarah has always been very careful with money, and now that she has a job, she wants to open a bank account. This is her story of how she visited the bank and opened her first bank account. Before going to bank, Sarah knew she had to be prepared. She did some research online to understand what she needed to bring with her. She found out that to open a bank account, she would need the following: identification, a government issued ID like a driver's license or a passport, proof of address, a utility bill or rental agreement with her name and address on it, social security number. This is important for tax purposes, initial deposit. Some banks require a minimum amount of money to open an account. Sarah gathered all these documents and put them in a folder. She also decided how much money she would deposit initially. She chose $100 because it was a good start, and the bank she selected required at least $50 to open an account. There are many banks in Sarah's town, but she wanted to choose the right one for her needs. She looked for a bank that was close to her home so she could visit it easily. She didn't want to spend a lot of money on bank fees. She wanted to feel comfortable asking questions. After doing some research, Sarah chose a local bank that had good reviews. The bank was only a 10-minute walk from her house, which was very convenient. The day of visit. On the day Sarah decided to go to the bank, she woke up early. She wanted to be there when the bank opened so she wouldn't have to wait in the line for too long. She dressed neatly, picked up her folder with all the documents, and left for the bank. The bank opened at 9 a.m. and Sarah arrived at 8:45 a.m. There were a few people already waiting outside. As soon as the door opened, Sarah walked in and was greeted by a friendly bank employee talking to the bank representative. A bank representative named Mrs. Johnson welcomed Sarah with a smile. Mrs. Johnson asked Sarah how she could help her today. Sarah replied, "Hello, I would like to open a bank account, please." Mrs. Johnson smiled and said, "Of course, please follow me to my desk." They walked over to Mrs. Johnson's desk and Sarah sat down in a comfortable chair. Mrs. Johnson started by asking Sarah for her identification and other documents. Sarah handed over her ID, proof of address, and social security number. The application process. Mrs. Johnson explained the different types of accounts the bank offered. There were checking accounts, saving accounts, and more specialized accounts like student accounts. Sarah was a bit confused, so she asked Mrs. Johnson to explain the difference between a checking account and a saving account. Mrs. Johnson explained a checking account is used for everyday transactions. You can use it to pay bills, make purchases, and withdraw cash. A savings account is designed to help you save money. It usually earns interest, which means the bank pays you a small amount of money for keeping your money in the account. Sarah thought for a moment and decided that she needed both types of accounts. She wanted to have a checking account for her daily expenses and a saving account to save for her future. Mrs. Johnson nodded and said, "That's a great choice. Let's start with the checking account." She handed Sarah a form to fill out. The form asked for basic information like her name, address, phone number, and social security number. Sarah filled out the form carefully, making sure all the information was correct. Mrs. Johnson then asked Sarah how much she would like to deposit to open the account. Sarah replied, I would like to deposit $100. Mrs. Johnson took the money and gave Sarah a receipt. Then she explained how to set up online banking so Sarah could manage her account from her computer or smartphone. Setting up online banking. Mrs. Johnson showed Sarah how to register for online banking. She helped Sarah create a username and strong password. Sarah was excited about this because it meant she could check her balance, transfer money, and pay bills without having to visit the bank every day. Mrs. Johnson also explained about the bank's mobile app, which Sarah could download to her phone. The app would make it even easier to manage her account on the go. Receiving the debit card. Next, Mrs. Johnson explained about the debit card that comes with the checking account. She told Sarah that the debit card would arrive in the mail within a week. The debit card would allow Sarah to make purchases directly from her checking account and withdraw cash from ATMs. Mrs. Johnson also explained the importance of keeping the debit card safe and not sharing the PIN, personal identification number, with anyone. Sarah understood and promised to be careful with her card. Opening the savings account. After setting up the checking account, Mrs. Johnson helped Sarah open a savings account. The process was similar, but Sarah didn't need to deposit any extra money since she had already deposited $100 and the bank allowed her to split this amount between the two accounts. Mrs. Johnson explained that the savings account would earn interest over time. She showed Sarah how to set up automatic transfers from her checking accounts to her savings accounts. This way, Sarah could save a small amount of money each month without having to think about it. Learning about bank services. Before Sarah left, Mrs. Johnson took some time to explain other services the bank offered. She told Sarah about overdraft protection, which helps prevent fees if she accidentally spends more money than she has in her checking account. She also talked about direct deposit, which allows Sarah's employer to deposit her paycheck directly into her bank account. Sarah was particularly interested in direct deposit because it would save her a trip to the bank every time she got paid. Mrs. Johnson gave her a form to fill out and give to her employer to set up direct deposit. Conclusion. After an hour at the bank, Sarah felt confident and happy. She had successfully opened both a checking and saving account, set up online banking, and learned about the various services the bank offered. Mrs. Johnson handed Sarah a welcome packet with all the information she needed and brochure with the bank's contact details in case she had any more questions. As Sarah walked out of the bank, she felt proud of herself. Opening a bank account was a big step towards managing her finances and becoming more independent. She could not wait to start using her new accounts and saving for her future. Sarah's visit to the bank was a smooth and positive experience. With her new bank account, she felt ready to take on the world and manage her money wisely. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more engaging English lessons. Happy learning, and until next time, goodbye.